Step back in time and rediscover the glamorous in-flight meals served during aviation's most elegant era. These airborne feasts were once the norm, luxurious, elaborate, and unforgettable. Let's dine in nostalgia. Imagine settling into a plush leather seat, the soft hum of engines in the background, and being served lobster thermidor at 35,000 feet. In the 1960s, this wasn't fantasy. It was standard fare aboard Pan Am or BOAC first-class cabins. Served with fine silverware, porcelain dishes, and crisp linens, it reflected an era when air travel embodied sophistication and elegance. Lobster thermidor, a rich French dish made with creamy bechamel, cognac, and cheese, was first introduced in the early 20th century. Airlines embraced it to impress high-paying passengers and deliver a taste of continental luxury. Enjoying such gourmet meals in the sky helped define flying as a prestigious event rather than a mere mode of transportation. Passengers dined with real cutlery, enjoyed attentive service, and often dressed for the occasion. By the 1980s, however, the rise of budget airlines and mass air travel led to cost-cutting across the board. Elaborate meals like lobster thermidor vanished, marking the end of an opulent culinary chapter in aviation history. Believe it or not, flight attendants once wheeled out carving carts mid-air to serve Chateaubriand steak. It wasn't just dinner, it was performance art at 30,000 feet. Passengers would watch in awe as uniformed crews sliced tender beef tableside, plated it with precision, and ladled on rich sauces with care. No turbulence could spoil the spectacle or the flavor. Chateaubriand, a luxurious center-cut tenderloin roast from French cuisine, was traditionally accompanied by béarnaise sauce and vegetables. Airlines like Air France, TWA, and Pan Am featured it prominently throughout the 1950s and 1960s, offering it as a signature entree for first-class passengers. The experience wasn't only about fine dining, it symbolized a golden age of travel, where attention to detail and hospitality were paramount. Every meal felt like a grand occasion. As aircraft cabins grew more crowded and efficiency became the priority, carving carts and theatrical meals were phased out. The elegance of Chateaubriand's service faded, marking the end of an unforgettable airborne ritual. Yes, baked Alaska was once served mid-flight, ice cream wrapped in sponge cake, covered in fluffy meringue, and torched to golden perfection. The very idea sounds impossible today, but during aviation's golden age, it was a breathtaking reality. Originating in the 19th century, baked Alaska became a symbol of culinary drama. In the 1960s, airlines like Pan Am introduced it to the skies, using dry ice and meticulous timing to keep the dessert perfectly frozen until service. It wasn't just about taste, it was about the spectacle. Passengers marveled at how such a delicate, labor-intensive dessert could be executed mid-air. It represented the daring elegance of the era's in-flight dining. But as cabins filled and meal service became streamlined, the logistics of making and storing baked Alaska became too costly and complicated. By the 1980s, it had disappeared from airline menus entirely. Still, for those lucky enough to experience it, the memory of cracking into that sky-high dessert remains unforgettable and deliciously surreal. If you thought dessert was decadent, wait until you hear about the breakfast offerings once served on long-haul flights. Waking up to the smell of hollandaise sauce and freshly poached eggs aboard a transatlantic flight may sound like a dream today. But in the 1970s, it was reality on luxury carriers like British Airways and Pan Am. Eggs Benedict, a brunch staple born in New York in the late 19th century, became a signature breakfast for first-class passengers seeking comfort and sophistication high above the clouds. Served with perfectly toasted English muffins, crisp Canadian bacon, and a generous spoonful of creamy hollandaise, the dish provided a warm, familiar start to the day. For travelers disoriented by time zones or jet lag, it felt grounding, almost like waking up at home. The attention to detail and care required to make it, poaching eggs to order, managing sauce temperatures, reflected a time when airline dining rivaled luxury hotels. But by the 1990s, smaller galleys and tighter budgets rendered it impractical. The golden age of mid-air eggs, Benedict faded, leaving behind delicious memories of sky-high indulgence. Not long ago, passengers woke up to silver trays bearing croissants, fruit preserves, cheeses, and seasonal fresh fruit, a full continental breakfast served with elegance and care. This refined morning ritual, inspired by upscale European hotels, became a hallmark of airlines like Lufthansa, Swissair, and Air France throughout the 1960s and 70s. Presentation was everything. The meal was arranged on fine china, accompanied by warm rolls, butter, and rich coffee poured into porcelain cups. Flight attendants offered service with a smile, reinforcing the idea that passengers were esteemed guests rather than anonymous travelers. This thoughtful breakfast set the tone for a graceful start to the day, whether passengers were crossing the Atlantic or waking mid-journey over the Alps. It conveyed a sense of dignity and serenity that's largely vanished from today's skies. But as airline budgets shrank and service models changed, these silver tray mornings faded. In their place came shrink-wrapped muffins, plastic utensils, and lukewarm coffee served in disposable cups. Practical, but far less charming. Did you ever own one of these silver airline trays? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your memories. Back in the day, ordering a martini on a flight wasn't just a drink, it was a moment of mid-air sophistication. Flight attendants prepared it tableside with practiced ease, offering passengers a choice of gin or vodka, shaken or stirred, with olives or a lemon twist. The ritual added a dash of theater and personal touch to the journey. Martinis, long associated with the jet-set elite, became a staple on full-service airlines like Pan Am and TWA during the 1960s and 70s. Served in real glassware with proper garnishes, the drink symbolized glamour, style, and social status. This wasn't just a cocktail, it was a statement. Sipping a martini while cruising above the clouds made air travel feel more like a lounge experience than simple transportation. However, concerns over alcohol consumption, shifting liability laws, and the push for streamlined service gradually ended the era of onboard cocktail artistry. The ritual faded, replaced by tiny bottles and plastic cups, functional but missing the charm. And while we're on drinks, the next beverage was once synonymous with international sophistication. Champagne wasn't just reserved for special occasions, it was the occasion. In the golden age of air travel, airlines like Singapore Airlines, Air France, and Pan Am greeted first-class passengers with a glass of bubbly the moment they took their seats. No boarding was complete without the soft pop of a cork and the delicate clink of crystal glasses. This tradition took off in the 1950s, when commercial flying was still a glamorous, high-society affair. Offering champagne created an instant atmosphere of celebration and exclusivity, transforming even the most routine journey into something memorable. It wasn't just about the drink, it was the message it sent. Passengers were valued, welcomed, and treated to the very best. Champagne before takeoff became a hallmark of flying in style. As the industry shifted toward affordability and efficiency, this golden ritual was scaled back. Today, it's mostly reserved for first class, with cheaper sparkling wines, or none at all, offered elsewhere, signaling a quieter, more practical era of air travel. Yes, caviar, served with the proper mother-of-pearl spoon to preserve its delicate flavor. This wasn't a marketing gimmick. It was a standard offering in first-class cabins aboard elite airlines like Aeroflot, Lufthansa, and Singapore Airlines during the 1960s and 70s. Caviar, long regarded as a global symbol of luxury and refinement, helped airlines showcase their commitment to impeccable service and international prestige. It wasn't just a food, it was a statement. Presented with all the traditional garnishes, minced onions, creme fraiche, toast points, lemon wedges, and sometimes even chilled vodka, it transformed an ordinary flight into a high-society experience at 35,000 feet. Flight attendants served it with formality and care, reinforcing the glamour of the golden age of air travel. But over time, rising costs, dwindling sturgeon populations, and changing consumer tastes made such indulgence harder to justify. Today, caviar service survives only in the most exclusive first-class suites, a rare reminder of the sky-high sophistication that once defined luxury flying. Sometimes, it wasn't the exotic dishes that stood out, it was the comforting ones. Roast chicken with rich gravy, buttered peas, and creamy mashed potatoes brought a sense of warmth and familiarity to travelers far from home. This classic meal gained popularity in the late 1950s and remained a staple through the 1970s. Airlines like American, United, and even TWA served it regularly in both coach and first class. It was hearty, satisfying, and evoked memories of family dinners and home-cooked meals. Its simplicity made it ideal for air travel, easy to prepare, easy to plate, and universally loved. It didn't need to impress, it just needed to comfort. But as aircraft galley technology shifted from convection ovens to microwaves, quality declined. Chicken became dry, sides turned bland, and this once beloved meal lost its soul. Today, a few airlines are attempting a comeback with higher quality ingredients and improved techniques, hoping to restore the nostalgic charm of this humble, home-style classic in the skies. But for now, let's turn from the warm comfort of dinner to something a bit more theatrical. Yes, flight attendants once flambéed crepes at your seat, right there in the aisle, flames and all. This wasn't just dessert, it was high-altitude theater, a final act in a luxurious dining experience. Crepes Suzette, a classic French dish of delicate pancakes drenched in a buttery orange liqueur sauce, gained popularity as a first-class finale on European and transatlantic flights throughout the 1960s and early 70s. The moment the flame hit the pan, the cabin was filled with the scent of citrus and caramelized sugar, plated with precision and flair. The dessert felt more like something from a Parisian cafe than an airplane galley. It wasn't just about taste, it was about experience. This dramatic tableside service made passengers feel truly special. But as aviation safety regulations tightened, open flames were banned from cabins. Flambé service vanished, taking with it a unique kind of airborne magic. Do you think we've lost something special in the pursuit of safety and efficiency in air travel? It's hard to imagine today, but beef Wellington, filet mignon wrapped in golden puff pastry, was once a staple on luxury flights during the golden age of air travel. Elegant, hearty, and visually striking, it reflected the pinnacle of in-flight fine dining. Originating in England and inspired by French culinary techniques, beef Wellington became an international symbol of gourmet sophistication. Airlines like BOAC and later British Airways proudly served it to represent British culinary excellence at 35,000 feet. The layers of tender beef, mushroom duxelles, and flaky pastry created a dish that felt both indulgent and comforting. Paired with a glass of robust red wine and presented on real china with silver cutlery, it rivaled what could be found in any high-end restaurant on the ground. Yet, the dish was notoriously difficult to reheat properly in an aircraft galley. With rising costs and changing passenger expectations, it disappeared from most menus by the late 1980s, leaving behind only memories of airborne decadence and culinary ambition. In the 1970s, Japan Airlines and other international carriers began introducing dishes like teriyaki chicken, blending traditional Japanese flavors with the elegance of premium in-flight service. It marked a new era of global cuisine taking flight, literally. Teriyaki, which translates to glossy grilled, features meat glazed in a sweet savory soy-based sauce. Airlines carefully prepared the dish with jasmine rice and seasonal vegetables, ensuring flavors held up well even at altitude. For many Western travelers, this was their first taste of authentic Japanese food. It wasn't just a meal, it was a cultural experience, served with care, precision, and artistic presentation. The dish offered a welcome break from the typical Western options and added a layer of international sophistication to flying. However, as airline meals became more standardized and mass-produced, the nuanced flavors of traditional teriyaki were lost. Before we move on, let's not forget a surprising treat that made passengers feel like kids again. Forget plastic pudding cups. Imagine being served a warm, rising chocolate soufflé in a porcelain ramekin, fresh from the galley oven. It may sound like a dream today, but in the 1970s, this was a reality aboard premier airlines like Swissair and Air France. The soufflé, known for its delicate structure and dramatic presentation, was a bold choice for in-flight dining. It required careful timing, steady hands, and precision, especially in the unpredictable environment of an airplane kitchen. But when done right, it arrived puffed to perfection, rich with flavor, and lightly dusted with powdered sugar. This dessert was more than just a sweet treat. It was a symbol of indulgence and a reward for flying in luxury. Watching it arrive warm and elegant was like receiving a five-star finale mid-air. However, the complexity and fragility of the dish couldn't survive industry changes. As meals became simpler and service streamlined, the chocolate soufflé became a delicious memory, one we still long for in today's sky. A glass coupe filled with chilled shrimp, nestled in a bed of crisp lettuce and topped with tangy cocktail sauce. This was the quintessential starter on luxury flights from the 1950s through the 1980s. Light, refreshing, and effortlessly elegant, Shrimp cocktail set the tone for a refined in-flight dining experience. Originally a favorite aboard ocean liners, the dish transitioned beautifully into air travel. Airlines like TWA, Pan Am, and British Airways used it to add a touch of sophistication to their first-class menus. Presentation mattered. The shrimp were carefully arranged, garnished with lemon wedges and parsley, and served in crystal or glassware. For many travelers, it felt like dining in an upscale restaurant, just one cruising at 35,000 feet. As seafood prices rose and storage regulations tightened, airlines began to phase it out. Packaged alternatives simply couldn't replicate its charm. Though small in portion, shrimp cocktail made a grand impression. Its legacy lives on as a symbol of the elegance once common in the skies. Yes, you read that right. Fresh pasta on a plane. During the golden age of air travel, airlines like Alitalia proudly served handmade ravioli, often filled with ricotta, spinach, or braised meats, then gently drizzled with sage-infused butter. The aroma alone could transport passengers straight to an Italian trattoria, even while cruising miles above the earth. Ravioli, with its centuries-old Italian heritage, became a symbol of national pride. Airlines used it not only to nourish, but to represent culture, showcasing Italy's culinary excellence to a global audience. Its texture, flavor, and comforting warmth made it ideal for long-haul travel. The simplicity of ingredients allowed the quality to shine, and passengers genuinely appreciated the care and authenticity in every bite. But as airline catering became more standardized and mass-produced, handmade pasta was replaced by frozen versions with rubbery textures and bland fillings. The soul of the dish was lost. Still, memories of sage-scented ravioli in the sky linger as a taste of what flying used to be. For short-haul flights, red-eye journeys, or late-night services, cold plates of cured meats, artisan cheeses, and crusty bread rolls were once the elegant solution to in-flight dining. These beautifully arranged trays offered a refined, no-fuss alternative to hot meals. Light, satisfying, and full of flavor. Inspired by the dining cars of European trains, this approach was quickly adopted by airlines like Lufthansa, KLM, and Swiss Air in the 1960s and 70s. It allowed for flexibility in service while maintaining a level of culinary sophistication. The offerings varied by route. Swiss Gruyere, French Brie, pâté, Italian prosciutto, German salami, and fresh fruit made appearances, often with little flags denoting each cheese's origin. These meals felt regional, curated, and thoughtful. However, as catering budgets tightened and storage logistics became more complicated, these artisan touches were replaced by plastic-wrapped processed cheese, generic deli slices, and bland crackers. What was once an elegant spread became a convenience item. Efficient, yes, but a far cry from the charm it replaced. Imagine selecting a bold Bordeaux to pair with your steak or a crisp Riesling to complement your seafood, all while soaring above the clouds. In the 1960s and 70s, this was a standard part of the first-class experience. Airlines like Qantas, Air France, and Lufthansa took great pride in their curated wine lists, often working directly with sommeliers and top vineyards to feature regional and seasonal selections. Some even printed full pairing guides with tasting notes and serving suggestions, treating passengers like honored guests at a fine dining establishment. This wasn't just about offering alcohol. It was about crafting a complete sensory dining journey. The right wine elevated the flavors of in-flight meals and reinforced the sense that flying was something special. Over time, as budgets were trimmed and service became more utilitarian, these pairing programs were quietly phased out. Today, passengers are often left choosing between red or white, poured into plastic cups, a far cry from the curated elegance of a mid-air wine experience. After dessert came one final treat, a small, elegant box of gourmet chocolates presented alongside freshly brewed coffee or a smooth glass of cognac. It wasn't just a sweet, it was a gesture of thoughtfulness, the final flourish in a meal designed to impress. These chocolates, often sourced from luxury brands like Godiva, Lindt, or regional chocolatiers, added a layer of indulgence to the in-flight experience. Airlines such as Swiss Air, Lufthansa, and Emirates, during their early years, made this detail part of their commitment to first-class excellence. The chocolates offered more than flavor. They symbolized care, attention to detail, and an old-world sense of hospitality. Many passengers saved them as souvenirs, tucked them into travel bags, or shared them with loved ones once they landed. But as airline budgets tightened and service became more utilitarian, these small luxuries were among the first to go. In their place came plastic-wrapped mints, or nothing at all, leaving behind only memories of a sweeter time in air travel. Next, we revisit a hearty dish made famous by its in-flight aroma. Hearty, slow-cooked, and rich with aroma, braised lamb shanks were once the highlight of long-haul luxury dinners in the golden age of flying. Served piping hot with a reduction of red wine, rosemary, and garlic, they brought comfort and refinement to cold, overnight journeys across continents. Inspired by French and Mediterranean culinary traditions, this dish was adopted by premier European carriers such as Lufthansa and Air France to showcase regional depth and gastronomic sophistication. Passengers praised not only the flavor, but also the practicality. Lamb shanks held up exceptionally well in the sky. Despite the challenges of altitude and limited galley space, the meat arrived tender and succulent, often falling cleanly off the bone. But as airline service models shifted towards speed and cost efficiency, labor-intensive meals like this became unsustainable. They were replaced with pre-packaged, microwavable alternatives that lacked the slow-cooked soul of dishes like braised lamb. Today, only a few airlines dare to revisit such complexity, reminders of a time when dinner in the sky was truly memorable. Airline meals truly peaked when you could order prime rib, carved to your preference right in the aisle, and served with rich au jus, freshly grated horseradish, and creamy mashed potatoes. This wasn't just flying, it was fine dining at altitude. Inspired by the grandeur of luxury hotel buffets and classic steakhouse service, this dish became a signature offering on airlines like United, TWA, and Pan Am from the 1960s through the early 1980s. It symbolized a time when airlines competed not just on speed or price, but on the quality of their dining experiences. The moment a uniformed flight attendant approached with a gleaming carving trolley was unforgettable. Passengers felt truly pampered, receiving generous slices of beef served with precision and warmth. But as aircraft grew more crowded and in-flight service streamlined, carving stations became impractical. The thick, juicy slices of prime rib gave way to pre-plated meals and shrink-wrapped efficiency. Do you think we'll ever see a return to that golden era of in-flight dining, or is it gone for good? Small, colorful fruit tarts with glossy berries and silky pastry cream once adorned the dessert trays of first-class cabins, especially aboard European carriers like Air France, KLM, and Swiss Air. Light, refreshing, and meticulously presented, they added a touch of artistry to in-flight dining. Rooted in the traditions of French patisserie, these tarts represented precision and elegance. Their flaky crusts, creamy interiors, and vibrant seasonal fruits, strawberries, kiwi, blueberries, or apricots, signaled attention to detail and a desire to impress. Served alongside a cup of espresso or fine tea, they offered the perfect end to a luxurious meal. Passengers appreciated the handmade feel, the balance of flavor, and the care that went into each delicate tartlet. However, as airline catering shifted toward efficiency and longer shelf lives, these fresh desserts became harder to justify. Food safety concerns and cost-cutting led to their replacement with sealed cake slices, packaged cookies, or processed sweets, far less memorable than their colorful, handcrafted predecessors. And finally, let's look at the one airline meal nearly every vintage traveler remembers. It wasn't just dinner. It was a 7-course culinary journey at 35,000 feet. Pan Am's legendary multi-course meals defined the golden age of air travel, beginning with elegant hors d'oeuvres and ending with liqueurs and petit fours. Each course was carefully curated to create a dining experience that rivaled the world's finest restaurants. Served on fine china with gleaming silverware and crisp linen napkins, the lineup included soup, salad, a main entree, cheese course, dessert, coffee, and cordials. Passengers were treated to top-tier wines, attentive service, and menus that reflected global culinary trends. This experience wasn't just about food. It embodied Pan Am's mission to make international travel a luxurious event. The airline built its brand on this sense of refinement, turning dinner into a marketing statement. But with deregulation in the late 1970s and the rise of budget competition, This level of service became unsustainable. The 7-course Sky Feast disappeared, but it remains a legendary symbol of aviation's most glamorous era. I hope you enjoyed this journey through vintage airline meals. Which dish would you love to see return? Share your favorites and subscribe for more nostalgic journeys. Until next time.